Tell them about the time we faced them.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution Show with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
We are here today and we are going to be talking about next Avengers, Heroes of Tomorrow. We're going to be getting you some news of the week. But before we do that, Alex, how are you?
Good. I gotta say, I was a little bit surprised when I watched this movie, Next Avengers, because there was a few things that I noticed in it this time around that I did not notice the first time, and it left me kind of scratching my head a little bit, you know?
We'll talk about this in a minute, but when we get to it, think about what was different between the first time you watched it, and I mean like the scenario, like your scenario, your personal scenario. What was different this time to last time, the first time to this time? There's the obvious, like you was watching it this time, like me and like Jarian, to do this. But like, what else was different? Obviously, you was a bit younger. I don't know how much younger, but anyway, think about that. Anyway, Jarian, how are you?
Doing all right, doing good.
Yeah, had a good week.
Busy, into the fiscal quarter. So
okay,
busy week, busy month. So yeah,
nice. So just before we get stuck into that, so as I did for Wakanda Forever, I'm going to try and go to the Ant-Man premiere in London. It's the 16th, which is odd because it's literally the day before it comes out. But that's going to be quite cool. I'm quite looking forward to it. But for the Wakanda Forever premiere, I took the couple of Funkos. I took the Namor Funko. I had the M'Baku Funko. My son had just a standard issue of Black Panther comic, and he got it signed by all the cast, and that was great. So this time he wants to take the Giant Man Funko. He's got the Giant Man, which I've got behind me, but he's got it in a box as well. It's a great Funko, isn't it? Yeah, it's really
so
cool.
Awesome.
But he wants to take that. He's got the box, and he wants to try and get that signed by Paul Rudd. And so I think Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, Jonathan Majors, and the girl's name eludes me actually, who's playing Cassie, but she's going to be in it. She's there as well. But he wants to try and get that signed. But I went to the comic store and I was trying to find a comic that I thought would be quite cool to get signed. And I have got a backup of an Ant-Man, a modern Ant-Man and the Wasp comic as a backup. But I found this and I thought this would be really cool. Look, can you see that?
Oh,
nice.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So that's an Avengers, Britain's greatest issue about Kang. Kang taking over the Sentries, so it's all black and white inside. It's a great little find. It's the old style sort of wide comic as well. It's not those sort of slim comics that you get now. But yeah, it's a great find from February the 2nd, 1973. So I'm hoping to get at least Jonathan Majors to sign this. I think that would be really cool.
It's hard to believe that's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're making me feel old. It was only a little while before I was born. But yeah, no, that's Oh God, that's really making me feel old. But yeah, so that was fun. That was fun finding that. It was the first time I think I've ever really spent a long time flicking through comic boxes. I think before that I've kind of known what I've wanted to find. Do you know what I mean? Where this, I was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to find. I was just trying to find something, and it was like, oh, I like that, that's a good option. And then that one cropped up, and yeah, but so I'm quite looking forward to that on the 16th. Hopefully gonna meet have a little Marvel Evolution meet up. So met Monty last summer, looking to meet Tim and meet him in London for the premiere, so that should be fun. But we'll see how it goes. Obviously I'm not with no expectations. I'm not sort of sitting there thinking it's going to be the same as Wakanda Forever, because it may well not be. But who knows? And other than that, I've just been watching Heroes of Tomorrow. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. And obviously, we shared the link on the page. If you found it on a stream on Netflix or on... was it on a streaming service over in the UK, Alex? I'm sure you said you found it somewhere.
Well, it used to be on Netflix. That was where I watched it some years ago. I think I watched it for the first time like when I was in college, and obviously I think some things obviously changed up as Disney kind of got a hold of a lot more Marvel properties. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore,
It's not.
unfortunately. Yeah, I'm not really sure where it is now, to be honest. I know I think I watched it on the link that
Yeah.
you shared, but
Same.
yeah, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. I thought it was on Disney Plus, but I could be very wrong about that.
It's not.
I'm surprised it isn't, if I'm honest. But having said that, looking on Disney Plus, there's quite a lot of animated movies. If I'm right, I think there's probably not on Disney Plus though. There must be sort of a dozen animated movies. I swear I've seen a dozen animated Marvel movies in the past, and they're not on Disney Plus. A lot of them. There's a lot of shows.
Yeah, but not movies. Maybe it's a rights issue, or they haven't reverted back to Disney/Marvel yet, and they're just waiting for them to come back in.
But regardless of where we watched it and how we saw it and where you can find it now, I mean, obviously you can buy it on DVD, you can find it on Blu-ray, but we watched it. We've all watched it. It's like I said, Next Avengers, Heroes of Tomorrow. The basic premise is around it's a future scenario where Ultron has taken over the world. He's devastated everything. He's killed all the original Avengers, which is quite dark, to be fair, for a kids show. All the parents are dead, and it centers around this sort of next generation of Avengers, their kids, which is quite interesting. You've got James, who's Cap and Natasha's son. You've got Torin, who's Thor's daughter. You've got Azuri, who is Black Panther's son. You've got Pym. There's no actual name. It's just Pym, who's obviously Hank and the Wasp's son. Yeah. And then you've got Francis, who's Hawkeye's son, who we'll talk about a little bit more in a while. But obviously it's a kids movie. It's an animated kids movie. But like I said just before we came on, there are some elements to it that I think are a little bit more serious, a little bit darker. I think it does find its way a little bit later on in the series. But just before we start, what do we think of those characters, those kids?
So 2 things that I noticed in the quick little, like, where it talks about, the Avengers went on to have lives and everything. I'm pretty sure that Black Panther's son's mother is Storm.
Yep.
Because in that shot, it's the power set. It's in that shot. They show like a lightning bolt and what looks like a reference maybe to Storm. So I thought that was really cool. I never noticed that the first time. So like the first time I watched that movie, I was like, why does he have like electrical powers? And then I was like, oh yeah, like watching this, I was like, now it makes sense. The second thing, James is totally named after Bucky. James.
Yes,
exactly.
And I was like watching it this time around, and I was like, why did I not notice that the first time? Like, I thought that was a nice little touch that they threw in there. Thought it was very cool.
That's a good catch, actually. I didn't even think about that because the whole time they make a big point of calling him James a lot. Well, I don't think they name the other character. They do name him, obviously, but that Tony says James all the time. He's like, James, do this. It's very clear when they say his name. And I like that. That's a great catch. I didn't even think about that. Great catch. But the storm, I think that's a good assumption to make, isn't it? That, he's Storm's son. And I found it interesting that Pym's son didn't have a name. And even if I waited for the credits, because I was like, did I miss the name of this kid? And I didn't. It's just called Pym. That's it.
I thought that was his name, just Pym.
Well, it obviously is. It's Pym.
Yeah.
He's a Pym. That's his name.
And it was interesting, too, that not actually all the Avengers did die, though, because Tony's still alive, Bruce is still alive, and Thor is still alive, which makes me interesting that Thor is still out there, but kind of abandoned his daughter until almost towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of does that whole I'm going to let you kind of work it out yourself kind of thing.
He does that thing that Odin did to Thor in the first MCU Thor movie, where he like sends him to Earth to learn his humanity. Like says that line to her, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I wanted you to learn humanity." It's the same thing that Odin basically did to me, a long time ago.
In a way, yes, but she still had her power set though, where Thor didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was interesting though that when she was fallen, though, that she'd learned how to call the sword back to her when she thought it was lost and thought she was worthless in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting thing, and I know Alex, you'll like to talk about this, but and I think I've said this before on this show, and I've certainly said it before somewhere or other, is Superman. I never understood Superman until someone told me, and I don't think it was you, it was somebody, but somebody told me Superman's problem isn't about if he can intervene, it's should he intervene. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he can do pretty much whatever he wants to do, and he could stop pretty much anything. But should he? Like, he's you know, do humans or whoever it is have to work some stuff out for themselves? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it? And I guess I'm thinking maybe was Thor along these lines in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's almost like that line that Jeff Goldblum said in Jurassic Park, like, you know, you didn't stop and think, you know, you should, you know, you could, but you didn't stop and think if you should. And in this case, Thor stopped and thought, I'm not going to intervene. I'll let my daughter Thorn, my daughter Thorn do it, figure it out. But if she gets into a spot where she needs some kind of reassurance, I will show up for that moment. And he did.
It just kind of feels like Thor kind of turned his back on Midgard. You know what I'm saying? Kind of in that perspective of like he's just letting Ultron do whatever, and it's like, well, that's one of your 9 realms, you know? Like you're supposed to be. I mean, you would assume that he's like probably like the king of Asgard in that universe.
They say
Yeah.
that, don't they? They say
Yeah.
Odin died, so that's why he had to go back to Midgard.
Yeah.
But you also got to think too is that he's probably keeping his eye on things and see, you know, can the young new next Avengers figure this out? You know, will this stay self-contained to Midgard, or do I have to get intervened? And I think that's what he did, is seeing, let's see how far this goes. There's still hope there. All is not lost yet. Yep.
They were still young. They were still only small. You know, he had to give. They're not going to intervene. They're not going to solve the problem when they're 9, are they?
Yeah.
They're going to have to wait until they're teenagers to be able to solve this problem, which obviously they then did. And we'll get onto how they solved the problem in a little while, because we all found that quite funny before we went live. So yeah, really good. I thought the Hawkeye, the character, and there was a certain line that I really loved when Hawkeye or Francis was talking to Tony, and he said, "Oh, what would my dad do? My dad did it," and Tony was like, "Your dad would punch me in the face and then help me." And I love those lines when when the Avengers, or not just Avengers, but a character shows how much they know another character by saying something really sort of really honest and really truthful. You know, I think I pointed out a moment a little while ago where there was a line where I think it was in Schism, X-Men story, where Cyclops is talking to, I can't remember the person who it is, but he's talking to somebody who badmouths Wolverine. And Cyclops basically says, you know, you're not worth half a Wolverine. I'd rather have Wolverine on his worst day than have 10 of you. You know, don't disrespect Wolverine. And there's a great line as well in one of the X-Men movies where somebody badmouths Charles to Magneto, and Magneto basically defends Charles. And I really love those moments.
I think it was the one with I think it was Pyro that said something to Magneto. I think it was like in The Last Stand. I think it was in that film. I think that's what you're talking about, that line.
Because Magneto and Xavier are kind of like 2 sides of the same coin almost, you know, like, I mean, they're just, they kind of believe the same thing, they just handle it differently, kind of.
Yeah, they want the same thing, but they just go in a completely different ways to get there. Yeah,
definitely.
But my point is, I think I love those moments where characters show how much another character means to them, or how much they know that character. And I think that moment, that line, you know, Clint would have punched me in the face and then come and help me, and I really love that, because that kind of, you know, that's almost true, isn't it? You know, how many times did you hear Clint in the MCU, for example, say to you know, almost like not belittle Tony, but have a go at him, have a dig at him. He quite often did that, you know, and I quite like that. And Clint Barton as a character in the comics is very, you know, says it how it is, which is great because he's only a human and he says it how it is to all these people.
One character that I felt like kind of bothered me in this movie was Ultron. Because they have that one line where they talk about Ultron takes over like half the planet in 13 years. And I'm like, it took him 13 years to take over half the planet. 13 years. Like, he wiped out everybody, but he's like still just creeping along. And they say something like, he's going to try and take Asia next or whatever. He hasn't gotten there yet. And I'm like, So why did it take him so long? Because, like, you know, in the MCU, he was about to wipe out like the entire planet in like 3 days of being alive, like, or be existing. You know, so
I mean,
like it's like
Skynet took over quicker than Ultron did.
Yeah.
It had to take him that long because the kids had to grow up. All right.
yeah, yeah.
The kids had to
Well,
grow up.
They could have put some nuance in there for that, though. It's like, why was he not spreading and conquering as fast as he could? You know, what was going on? You know, besides Hawkeye being out there, you know, still alive, which Tony didn't know until the Vision told him. You know, what was the resistance? Was Vision the resistance out there? And that's why it took so long. What was keeping him from expanding his empire?
Yeah, was there? I mean, he showed. Well, actually, that's a good point, because about halfway through the movie, they get to Ultra City, don't they, the kids, and they go and find the sort of trophy room, and then when the lights come on, it shows you all of the trophies. It's not just the main Avengers that he's got trophies for. He's got all these other, I guess, heroes and villains. I was trying to spot to see if there was any, you know, like the shoes in the She-Hulk thing, whether there was any. I couldn't really make out any characters in particular, but obviously there was hundreds and hundreds of trophies that he'd got. So maybe it was that was slowing him down. You know, the fact
Like
that he had
pockets
to
of
defeat,
other,
he had to defeat all these different heroes, whether they were heroes or villains. He had to defeat somebody.
Which it's strange that that Ultron would keep trophies like that, because it shows that there's like a sentimental value for his kills. You know, like almost like it's like a Killmonger marking himself, kind of like every time he gets another kill.
Yeah, and it's so in Wasteland, in Old Man Logan, obviously Red Skull keeps the trophies, doesn't he, of all the heroes, and that actually becomes part of his downfall in the end of that. But that makes sense, because Red Skull is at the end of the day, he's a human, isn't he? But Ultron isn't. And a friend of mine always used to laugh about villains in movies and things like that when they. No, actually, I'll tell you what it was. It was one of the Terminator remakes. And the Terminator was like playing with the person that they were trying to kill. And he was like, this is just a robot that's designed to kill. Like, why is it playing with the person? Why doesn't it just kill him? Like, what? It's not designed to play with them and throw them across the room. Why don't you just chop its head off? So again, like, you know, that, like you said, that shows that there is some sort of humanity to Ultron. But I didn't even said that. I think in the MCU, he kind of showed that a little bit, didn't he?
Yep.
You know, so is he totally dead as such? Like, is he just a robot?
Well, think about his programming, right? Though, because wasn't Ultron basically kind of a mix of Tony and Banner? Because they're ones that kind of, well, in the MCU they kind of programmed them. So you got to think in this one. Did they say it was Tony responsible in this one, or was it Pym?
Tony.
Okay. So probably similar route, that there's probably essence parts of Tony, or just what he's learned through the internet of stuff, that he's kind of pulled some personality into his programming, possibly.
He was far more methodical in this animated movie than he was in the MCU. In the MCU, there was definitely some emotion coming through at times, wasn't there?
Some cockiness too.
Yeah, the human attributes. I guess.
It was like he looked at humanity as like a bacteria, and he was like, I gotta just wipe this clean real quick in the movie, you know, like it's causing all these issues, and I'm the next best thing, kind of type thing.
Yeah, shall I tell you what it gave me vibes of, especially the Ultra City, was the Matrix.
Yes, yes.
And the I guess it's the third one, because you don't really see it until the third one, do you? Revolutions. But it gave me those vibes of you know, going into this robot city that was completely sort of, all these little robots were doing all the jobs, and I think that was just going on to the Matrix. The Matrix, by the way, is the first one is one of my favorite movies of all time. Just absolutely brilliant. Come out at a time for me when I was sort of 17, 18 years old, and it was just mind blowing, you know, what you're seeing on the screen. But and the third one, okay, I know the second and third ones. We don't need to get into that discussion, but there still were some great elements in both of those movies. You know, okay, on the whole they weren't great, I understand, but there were some really, really great pieces. I mean, the second one had some absolutely beautiful fight scenes and action pieces. I mean, that car chase scene for like 20 minutes was incredible. The twins, yeah, I mean, they were so underutilized as well. They could have been awesome, and those guys knew hand-to-hand combat. Those guys, that's why they hired them, because they were really great. And you kind of like, I only saw it for about a minute, not even that. But anyway, point being is that was really exciting to see the robot city in the third one, because they were sort of building it up through the whole thing, you know, the whole trilogy, and you were like, I can't wait to see this. And it was quite interesting seeing all the little robots scurrying around. And yeah, Ultra City definitely gave me those vibes.
From the chat here, MCU Ultron had a big ego too. Wonder where he got that.
Tony Stark.
Yep. But speaking of Ultron, I was kind of disappointed in how fast Ultron was able to take over the Iron Avengers, right? You know, that was Tony's failsafe. So one, the kids launching them an accident was kind of a weird thing. That being to where he found where they were to kind of go attack there and take Iron Man hostage. But then three, how quickly he was able to infect them and take them over as his own. It was like, Tony's smarter than this. If Tony was, you know, responsible for Ultron, Tony should have some fail safes in not only in his armor, but in the Iron Avengers as well, for them not to be owned so quickly by Ultron.
And they have that tech virus in this movie that they talk about, that ever since like Ultron's developed, it's started to like infect all other forms of tech, and it's causing all these other issues. So like, I think Vision was talking about like he feared it even himself. So, you know, Tony Stark wearing an Iron Man suit, he's going to have to fear that. And at one point he's fighting Ultron. He infects his suit. He starts kicking pieces off of the suit because it's like infected tech. So it's kind of like, I mean, you know, he obviously wants to take Tony because he wants to learn about these kids that have, he has no knowledge of, because he has no surveillance of, because he has no record of them, you know, anywhere. So he just knows that the Avengers had kids, and that's it. He knows nothing about them. So
I think that could have been solved, that what you were saying there, Jaron, by one line, and that would be Tony saying they weren't ready yet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that was kind of the impression that I got anyway, or almost that he designed them and then realized it won't work. And then didn't launch them for the reason that Ultron would have taken them over, or they either weren't ready. But I was like, that could have been easily sort of gone like, well, why hadn't he used them then? Like, they were sitting, he's got this great tool at his disposal. Why has he not launched them yet?
His response time to it was like 45 seconds, like Ultron's there, and you're like, man, like he got here so quick, but yet like it takes him 13 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Half the Earth, huh? Like, okay.
I suppose that's our critical eye. I mean, we watch movies all the time, as just general movies. We watch Marvel movies and superhero movies even more often than that. So we've got a critical eye on it, and obviously we have to remember that this is a kids' movie at the end of the day. So there are things that we're going to have to kind of, you know, gloss over a little bit and just kind of go, well, it is what it is because it's a kids movie. But I do agree that kind of, he never really explained why he hadn't used them in the past, and you kind of like, that could have been solved in 2 seconds by saying they weren't ready yet, and then that's it.
Well, and if you notice that there was no Iron Man one, so it was almost like Tony was like trying to build a replacement Iron Man army of his previous Avengers to go fight Ultron at some point.
Yeah.
No Hulk either.
Yeah, no Hulk either. So it was like Tony almost planned one day, like he knows the Hulk's still out there. Tony's still here. The rest of them died, and he makes one for every like dead Avenger to replace them almost.
So speaking of that, I can't remember. Did he know that Hulk was still alive?
I think he did from late in the movie. I think he knew he was somewhere out there but didn't know. But also, too, in the same breath, he didn't know Hawkeye's son was still alive until Vision told him. So maybe he didn't know. Maybe the Vision knew. Maybe he found out without off screen somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he still made the Hawkeye robot, though, you know. So, like, I mean, I'm sure that he probably thought that like Hawkeye was kind of dead, maybe as well, you know. So
this brings me on quite nicely, actually, to what I was saying about these slightly not darker tones necessarily, but let's say more serious tones, and more emotionally touching tones, I guess. There was that moment where James approached his dad's robot, and was like, I wonder if it's got my dad's voice or my dad's memories, you know. And you can really see that actually these are kids that were orphaned when they were babies, you know. That's actually quite all of them, and their parents were murdered by this robot that they're being trained and kept safe from. Like, actually, when you look at it like that, it's quite a sort of, you know, like I say, quite a dark tone to that piece of the movie, really, you know. And he had that like little moment, the music changed a little bit, and you were kind of like, oh, poor lad, like, you know. And his dad was Captain America, You know, if you want to meet your dad, if your dad's Captain America, you're going to want to meet him. And that was a great line when he said, Ultron said about the fact that Captain America was the one that kind of united them, you know. And you kind of feel sorry for James that he doesn't get a chance to meet his dad, you know, in that capacity, or speak to his dad and learn from his dad that way. And I think that was a touching little moment for me. I kind of, you know, I like Cap, and I found that quite a touching moment.
There's two lines that I really like in this movie, and it's one that you just said about how Ultron's like, you know, the problem with Captain America was he inspired the Avengers. And then at one point, Ultron, I think, is talking to Tony, and he says something like, "You have nothing left. You've lost." And he's like, "No, we have hope." And he's a human delusion, or something to that
Hope
effect. I think that's kind of funny because it's kind of similar to inspiring as well to me. So it's like Ultron kind of said the same thing two different ways.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, okay, yeah.
What do you, speaking of the Iron Avengers, I thought the Black Panther one was pretty cool, how that kind of transformed into a panther. Yeah, when they were going through that final battle, when they were actually working together to take him out, that was a pretty cool thing to see him transform into that.
I wanted to see the Black Widow, because the Black Widow one starts to do it, doesn't she? She grows another set of arms.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I have seen it. I think I watched it with my kids when they were a lot younger. And we'll get onto that. And I said to you, Alex, about what was different between like the first time and the second time, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I couldn't quite remember whether she did, because when he turned into a panther, you're like, is she going to turn into a spider? Like, that'd be great. She turns into this big spider, you know. I thought that'd be awesome. And then the Wasp as well. Talking about the Iron Avengers, where the Wasp come from, because they even make a point, don't they? The kids saying there's not a pixie. Yeah. And obviously the pixie was hiding inside, you know, Hank, and he spits loads of them out. Yeah. So that was quite cool. But I think that they were really cool little robots, actually. And I quite liked the way they looked, to be honest. I thought they looked really good. I'd like to see them in live action. Yeah,
it's a shame we didn't get to see more of them fighting Ultron, where he just wiped the floor with them so quickly. It'd been good to have at least a decent fight scene first, and then do that. But it was like, nope, they're mine.
And that was a little bit of and Alex will laugh at this. That was a little bit of a Gore the God Butcher moment, wasn't it? Because it was like, here's Gore the God Butcher. Let's not see him butcher any gods. And it was like, here's these robots, and off screen, you know, as the kids are running, it's like Captain America offline, you know, Thor offline. Offline. You're like, show me. I want to see this.
There was one point in this movie where somebody tells James, they're like, "James, you don't have any powers." And I'm like, at the beginning of this movie, he kicks somebody like 100 feet. Like, what do you mean he doesn't have any powers? He's totally like got some blood of the super soldier running in him, you know, like totally.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of James too, it was interesting how they did his shield. It was like a device on his arm. It wasn't like a normal, you know, vibranium shield like Cap has. It was actually more of a tech-based shield. That was pretty interesting too as well. But when that got destroyed in that fight, he actually used the Iron Cap's shield to fight after that.
Yeah, he did. And it was interesting, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, Joan, actually, because he throws it a couple of times, doesn't he? He throws it at Tony's like shackles and breaks the shackles. But he also throws it at something that's closing, and it holds the thing that's closing, doesn't it? And it's almost like that little bit. What I was thinking when I saw that was a little bit like that hard light power that Miss Marvel's got, you know, where it's kind of there for a little while and then it breaks.
Construct,
Yeah, this is it. So I wonder how that was made. I mean, it looked like a gauntlet at times, didn't it? Maybe something that Iron Man, that, you know, Tony had made for him to wear. And obviously the shield was a little bit sort of Tony-esque shield, you know, like the shield he puts up in Endgame, that you know, to protect him and Clint.
Barn Door Protocol.
Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting, actually, and the fact that he can transition to Cap's, the shield that the Iron Cap had was pretty cool. But I love. Do you know what? Talking about James, actually, I loved his outfit. I thought his outfit was great. You know, that kind of, I don't know what that's called.
Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, and you know, Captain America. You know, kind of one of those things where it had kind of like the red kind of star on the top, kind of, you know,
the leather. But that was really cool. But what's that item of clothing called where it comes right over, like the buttons come right over? There's an item, and the big collar. I thought it looked great,
like a peacoat type thing.
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a peacoat, the way that operates like that. Yeah, but that could be something more specific. But usually on peacoats.
Yeah, that was really cool. And then getting towards the end of the movie, because it doesn't take long to get through. It's only a 78-minute movie. Because then it's a kids movie, you know, we've got to remember that. They solved the whole problem by just getting the Hulk involved.
When in doubt, break glass for Hulk.
Break glass for Hulk. That should be we should make a meme. He doesn't want to be bothered. It's typical Hulk. It's typical Hulk, just taking himself out of the equation. Just leave me alone. Like, I don't care what I can help. I don't care who I can help. I just want to be left alone. And I love these little hermit life that he's got with his little plants and his little Zen garden, and he's doing his breathing techniques. And then people come and bother him, and you can see it in his face. He's like panics instantly. He's like, "Get out, go away, leave me alone." You know, I love that. I love that about him.
Hey, you kids, get off my lawn.
Get away from my bonsai plant.
Yeah, but he was definitely living his best life that he could in that situation with Betty and trying to stay off the radar. It's like he was done. It's like he probably saw, it was almost like in Age of Ultron when Scarlet Witch kind of put that spell on Tony with Cap saying, "You could have saved us, they're all fallen." But instead of Cap seeing it, or instead of Tony seeing it, it was almost like the Hulk saw that happen in real life and went off to be on his own because he didn't want to deal with that pain anymore.
Yeah,
I've seen his friends fall.
Which in that movie, you know, he kind of does experience that because the Hulk gets kind of like mind manipulated by Scarlet Witch, and then he's kind of like afterwards, like he looks around, like looking at the chaos that he just caused, and he's like right before Tony knocks him out, he's kind of a little bit caught off guard, like looking at the destruction and the chaos and the people hurt and stuff like that. So it's kind of that weird reversal almost, you know.
What do you guys think about Vision in this movie? So Vision
Can you hold that point and just go back to Hulk just quickly? We'll
Yeah.
come to Vision in a second. Just going on Hulk, that's such a common theme that I've seen from the Hulk. If you think Ed Norton's Hulk in The Incredible Hulk, you know, he takes himself away from a lot. I mean, even when the movie starts, he's already taken himself away. When the movie ends, he takes himself away. Ruffalo's Hulk, the first time we see him in Avengers, he's in India somewhere. He's like, "Look, I don't want to help." Even when Natasha's sort of saying to him, "Come on, you know, we need your help," and he's like, "No, I don't want to go." And he sort of is really reluctant to get involved. And I think that's a nice theme that's always played out with a Hulk that I can always not necessarily relate to, but I can always rely on. That's the sort of the go-to for Bruce Banner. He's like, "Nope, I don't want to do it," and then he always ends up doing it.
Even Bill Bixby's TV show Hulk did the same thing. He was on the road constantly doing similar things. Didn't want to get involved, and as soon as things popped off, next town he's off to.
Yeah.
From the chat, I watched Ed Norton Hulk after this Avengers actually. So
Yeah. I mean, he's a similar sort of scenario in a couple of times, isn't he? Like I say, at the end, he takes himself off to like a little shack somewhere, doesn't he? I think.
Cabin in the woods.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and obviously at the beginning, he's in Mexico or Brazil or somewhere South America.
Hulk always removes himself from the equation. He feels too dangerous even to help people. That's from the chat also.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I thought I quite liked the Bruce character in this movie. You know, that kind of crazy old man. You know, they even said that, the kids, didn't they? They said, "Oh yeah, crazy for sure." But he did have that crazy look, but the Hulk was hilarious. You know, the first thing he did.
It kind of gave me those Maestro vibes. I mean, like the way that he looked, you know, like
the hair.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, it just makes me laugh, you know, when he goes crazy and then like sort of Pym whispering in his ear, "Yeah, Ultron said he was the strongest one," and I was like, "No, I'm the strongest." But yeah, that was quite funny. But yeah, and obviously, you know, the whole problem gets solved by the Hulk. Really, you know, he takes seconds to dispatch Ultron in the end, I guess, just to rip him apart. But that was a good fight. And again, that the gravity of that fight, you know, getting stomped on, getting thrown through, you know, mountains, and you know, that whole sort of epic battle, which reminds me of when we saw on screen Zod versus Superman in Man of Steel, that kind of throwing people half a mile. And actually they did a lot of that in Man of Steel, didn't they, when he fought the three guys before him. They kind of threw him for a train at him from about 10 miles away. A train just landed on his head from miles away. I love that big scale thing, and that's what I'm really hoping we get in the MCU with him and Sentry at some point, you know, that big scale fight.
There's an animated episode of Justice League where Superman fights Darkseid, and he literally tells him that he always holds back because he lives in a world of cardboard, and then he proceeds to like punch Darkseid through like multiple buildings, and then when Darkseid flies through, Superman's waiting on the other side. He's already like hit him, and then he's zipped over there, and then waiting for him, and then smacks him into the ground. So it's just like kind of that cool kind of idea, of like I've been holding back this whole time.
Yeah, and you just don't see that very often because obviously there are big hitters. Yeah, there's big hitters, but then there's Hulk and people like Hulk and Sentry and Superman and those kind of people that are just they I don't know, whatever the next level is from big hitters, that's what they are.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we get to that level of Sentry in the MCU, knowing what's been reported about Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
I think we're more likely to see that if an actual World Hulk project happens, fighting against multiple Hulks, but not against Sentry, unfortunately. From the chat here. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, from the chat here, how they got him to win, I thought was cool. They played on his ego, and then another one, Hulk is strongest ever. There you go.
They do play, but it's funny, isn't it? Because Banner hasn't actually got that ego at all.
Nope.
Where Hulk definitely has. Like, Hulk wants to be the strongest one. He's very sort of simple, isn't he?
Banner's kind of a weak individual, so they're polar opposites, kind of in a way.
Maybe he's not really a weak individual. He's more of he wants to use his mind to do things rather than use any kind of physical force.
Ooh.
It's the brains versus brawn argument.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's that total contrast between that. Like Hulk's not smart at all. Banner doesn't want to get involved. Hulk wants to. Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah,
and Banner knows that. You can just tell by his actions. Look at Veronica. Look what he said in the MCU. Just look at in this cartoon. Look at any time that you see Banner in anything versus the Hulk. He knows that if he gets out of control and the Hulk takes over, boom, that things are going to get way out of hand.
To be fair, I suppose like it or not, the whole sort of Professor Hulk thing, when he says he combines the two, he combines the brain and the brawn. He says that, I think, in Endgame.
Yep.
In the calf. Yeah, he says that. So I suppose, he's known that all along. It's like steroids, isn't it? They say about steroids, it just brings out what's already in there, but with Hulk, it took the bit that he was missing and just amplified it a million times. Yeah, but interesting, and they just solved the whole problem with the Hulk, like we said before. Really, there you go. Just get him angry, and he'll sort it out. Joey, I know you wanted to talk about Vision.
Oh yeah, Vision was. From what we know of Vision, Vision was very disappointing in this movie, because think about it. Because I understand Vision can get injured, and what we see in Vision, he kind of self heals himself, except for in Endgame when with Corvus Glaive, that he couldn't take care of himself that way, but. You also think too with Tony being able to take his body or head off the body, that he might have backup pieces for him or backup bodies for the Vision. Especially with the escape plan was to just take Vision's head, go put it on the Quinjet and launch into space, or launch out of there. But then Vision loses power, right? He's like, we get it that Tony loses power because his suits how they're powered, but the Vision, really, that was kind of interesting with the whole Vision arc in this thing.
We'll get back to this next bit in a minute, because I was going to say I swear the first time I watched it, Vision had a much bigger part in this movie, but obviously I was wrong because he doesn't, which plays into what you were saying about how not disappointing, but how much of just a small part he plays in it. But yeah, I know what you mean, because even Tony says he evaded Ultron by staying intangible. I'm sure that's what he says right at the beginning, doesn't he? So like, what changed?
Yeah,
it's almost like he's corrupted somehow, like by Ultron, and they don't really explain it. Like it's almost like he got like a little bit of that tech virus somehow or something.
Yeah, but that would have been better. Why didn't they just do that? And that would have worked.
Just say it. Just say it one time, like on screen. And
I know. Yeah, I know. I keep going on about it and saying it's a kids' movie, but a couple of little bit of juxtapositions can just make a massive difference, and all of a sudden it just ties everything together a little bit. Like we said, like Tony making that one-liner about they weren't ready, and like Vision coming back with that red pattern on him, like, and then Tony going, "Oh, quick! Like remove the head, almost like a zombie virus. Like take the head off, and it'll be okay." Like just solved, problem solved.
And there's go ahead.
No, I was saying, but you would think Tony would have had a better contingency plan for the Vision because Vision was his entire contingency plan for the kid. So that's my whole problem with Vision was like he was a non-factor other than launching the Quinjet and getting them out of there. After that, he was like, "I'm out. I'm done." You know,
I was like,
yeah, my job's
it was,
done.
it was like an old man who just sort of falls asleep in the chair.
Yeah.
Sunday lunchtime.
I mean, he's basically the ship's autopilot, is all that he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And then he dies right after he starts working. And I mean, his whole point in this movie is he kind of, I guess, knows that Tony's like lying to the kids when he tells them to get on the Quinjet because like he's going to be right there. Really, he's just trying to buy him time to get to safety. He's willing to sacrifice himself for Ultron. Vision's like, you know, we're on course to the Savage Land, and then they don't give us the Savage Land, which
How
I'm just
disappointing
like,
was that?
like, because, you know, when I watched it this time, I was looking back and I was like, I did not remember the Savage Land in this. Like, I'm so excited right now. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's because it wasn't in this. They
Yeah.
just mention it, you know?
It was a
like,
tease.
yeah. But like, and then the Vision like wakes up at the end of this movie and he's just like, oh, what did I miss? Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a little joke almost, you know?
And that's why I'm likening him to like Grandad on
Mhm.
Christmas Day. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like big part of the meal, then he falls asleep, and then he wakes up at the end of the night going, right, yeah. So where are we at? Do you know what I mean? He's completely just not missed the whole. He's missed the whole day, you know. And Vision just missed everything, and he wakes up at the end and he goes, right, now we're gonna do this, and everyone's like, we've already done it, Grandad. Like, be quiet.
And a good point about mentioning Savage Land because you would think that if they could have gone to Savage Land, how the Savage Lands is, that could have been a refuge because maybe Ultron would have been ineffective there. Maybe they could have come across a young Khazar and Zabu as well, and was it She Devil or Shanna the She Devil down there as well?
Yeah.
You know, and got more allies, and maybe had a last stand there in the Savage Land, and maybe that's where the Hulk could have been too, instead of the way they found him. So, yeah, it was kind of throwaway not to kind of use the Savage Land more and only mention it.
Ooh, that would have been cool to put Hulk in the Savage Land, just
Mhm.
like him, like taking out his anger on stuff in the Savage Land every once in a
Fighting
while or
with
something.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
There's a couple of things for the chat there, Jaren. I can see
Yep.
you. Yep, there you go.
Sorry, my wife was texting me too to make sure that nothing was important. Yes, he was just made for me. I didn't see the point of him being there, to be honest. This is a reference to the Vision. And then I'm sorry, Vision. I keep saying the Vision like I'm in WandaVision. I mean, his head batteries were drained since since when? LOL. Exactly. It's like his power source. We never saw anything like that with his power source, where he didn't need recharging, didn't need to plug him in. Obviously, it's like maybe give him solar panels if you have some kind of battery problem, so he can constantly charge while he's out flying around and doing stuff.
On the top of his head.
Yeah, just no, his like skin like solar absorbent, whatever. But yeah,
We could
the
do a
Vision really
Wally.
didn't do much. Yeah,
Do a Wally, get it out of the bag and sit.
or
in the
pops
sun.
pops up a big panel.
An umbrella.
Yeah, or his
Um,
cape even, but his cape was gone at that point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. So we can wrap this up. We've done well to talk about this movie for 42 minutes, to be fair. But look, you know what? It's a kids' movie, and it is what it is. But just thinking, I know I posed the question to you, Alex, at the beginning. What was different between the first time and the second time, or the last time you watched it and now? And like I said, obviously we've watched it this week for this purpose, to come in and talk about it like this. And as I said, we're sort of critical and analytical of projects, movies, whatever they are. And I guess we had that in our minds. But for me, I was kind of watching it as so I watched it. I didn't watch it on my own. I watched it with my older son, who's 17. But I think the first time I watched it, I did watch it with my older son, who at the time was probably only about 5. So I watched it as a dad watching a movie with his kid, rather than watched it as an adult for the purposes of reviewing it as a movie. Do you know what I mean? Well, not even reviewing it. We're not reviewing it, are we? We're talking about it. This is not a review. We don't do reviews as such. But, I watched it with the purpose of discussing it now. So I think I watched it with a probably not even a more detailed eye, but just thinking about all of the things that we would probably talk about now. So I guess like it was looking at, like Jarian said, like Azuri probably being Storm's son, as well as T'Challa's son.
Alex.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, Alex. Yeah. Sorry. but yeah, do you know what I mean? Watching all of those things, looking at sort of the Vision's part in it, looking at the Hulk's and part of it, and his psychological side, and looking at James's emotional state in the whole movie. Where the first time it was just I'm watching it with my kid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of did both. I kind of watched it because my son watched it with me. I actually fell asleep and had to start part of it over. But we watched it. But I went with the mindset of one, watch something to watch with my son, but also two, how can we adapt this story to the multiverse saga, right? Could they use a similar storyline? Not maybe saying all these guys are gonna have kids or all the Avengers are gonna have kids and that kind of stuff, but how could they form a next Avengers team to take on the Kang threat as we go through the multiverse saga? Was the mindset I went in with it.
That'd be really nice to see that as an alternative, or just another future. The next Avengers taking on Kang as a different variant of Kang.
I think the first time I watched this, I was in college. I think I was writing a paper or something. I just threw it on Netflix because it was like, oh, like Marvel, this seems a little bit different. So, I'll watch it, whatever. So I threw it on and I watched it. I really enjoyed it. But, like kind of looking at it a second time, like one of the things that I think now, like looking back, it's like I see some deeper connections in this, like you were saying, Andy. I see some things that I feel like kind of go back to characters that I probably didn't recognize maybe the first time around. But with this time, I will say one of the things that I think took like a step back from is this is kind of like a Young Avengers team almost in a way. This is kind of like another version of the Young Avengers. Because like the Young Avengers are kind of like younger characters kind of taking like mantles and kind of making them their sort of own and kind of being like the next one to kind of be like the hero before them, and then that's kind of what this is, but it's like all their kids though. So it's a little bit different, but like, it kind of feels very Young Avengers to me. It feels like what we might get in the future in the MCU, something kind of like this.
Am I right in thinking that, because I can't remember, but this story wasn't based on any comic story that had been around?
I don't think
so.
No, neither do I. This was a totally sort of original story. Obviously, Ultron taking over the world and a apocalyptic future is repeated every other month. It feels like at the moment, but
fandom,
yeah, that's it. And literally everything is that happens all the time. But the idea of them Avengers having kids and it being their kids being next Avengers was a new idea for this movie.
What if they could take this and, like I said, I looked at it kind of see if something happened in the multiverse saga to our older heroes, how could they take this same story and put it into the multiverse saga? But there's not gonna be kids of the heroes because that's already passed. Time has passed. The only one we have a kid from is Tony and Pepper for Morgan. But what if at some point in the multiverse saga they could do something where all of the main heroes, something gets happened to them, whether trapped by Kang, whether they're dispersed across the multiverse, and all of a sudden we see, like first starting off with Quantumania, Cassie has to start pulling people together. She goes find Kate Bishop, they go find the Patriot, they go find Riri, they go find Miss Marvel, they go find America, they find all these younger Avengers, maybe even pull Morgan Stark in if they need to, possibly. They pull all these together for some kind of way to get those heroes back, and they all join the fight together, which could lead us into a post-multiverse saga, Young Avengers type storyline for the future, setting that up.
Well, there's I mean, what you said there is touching on Avengers Forever, isn't it? Pulling. I mean, I know you're saying pulling these people together from the same universe, but sort of Avengers Forever was pulling people from different times, different universes together, to, for a common cause. Which I think is probably where we're going for the Kang Dynasty.
For Secret Wars
Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars. That period. I think they're going to certainly take inspiration from Avengers Forever for that.
Because it would be neat to see our main timeline heroes get dispersed across the multiverse, them meeting other variants, whether it's themselves or somebody else, and then these kids bring them back together for that big Secret Wars fight. And all these kids are from the same universe, thus setting up a new Young Avengers team for the future. I think that would be kind of a cool thing to see in the MCU. I doubt it's going to happen, but it'd be a cool way to do like a twist on Avengers Forever.
I don't know. You say I don't think it's as crazy as you think. I don't think that's perfectly reasonable. that could happen.
Alternatively, I think it's also interesting that we saw Billy and Tommy in the 838 universe, and we know that they're not in the 616 in the MCU. So, I mean, they could very well just have the Young Avengers form in another universe with like another Billy and Tommy and everything like that, bring them all in and be like, hey, this is universe whatever, and the Young Avengers replace the Avengers there at some point, if they chose to do so.
But if the rumors about WandaVision are true, we could get another Wiccan, but not just the same Wiccan.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have a Wiccan in the main universe
Mm-hmm.
Agatha. With Agatha, Covenant Chaos, we could see another different Wiccan, but not the same person.
And I think a lot of that goes back to your theory about the statue in the temple of the Scarlet Witch being like a Billy. And I mean, that kind of would also, I mean, who knows? He might be related to the Book of Ashanti and when it was destroyed, maybe like that's like some sort of thing. I mean, Billy, I think, is related to like the Demiurge in the comics, which is like the supernatural force that like created like the Elder Gods and stuff like that. So, like, Chthon is, like, created from the Demiurge, which is where Wanda gets her powers, and then Billy's, like, related to the Demiurge, almost. So, kind of a cool little thing there, I guess.
Nice.
And that's why we could see a main timeline Wiccan without the multiverse. Now, Speed's another thing probably won't, unless all of a sudden they could say that Pietro had some relationship that resulted in a kid that we didn't know about. They could do that twist in the MCU as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they do that. I think there'll be some sort of it'll be based around the identity theme again with Billy or with Wiccan, and about him finding who he is and to finding his mother will help him find out who he is, sort of thing. I think that's probably the route they're going to go down. I think that feels very, very current and relevant to the world as it is now. But on kind of on this point, actually, and I'm glad you can't mention it because I probably wouldn't have brought it up if you hadn't. But so a member on the group, Becca Townsend, brought up something in a comment the other day, and I was like, I actually really like that idea. I mean, whether it happens or not, it probably won't. But she said that she'd heard a suggestion that not all of the characters in the Disney Plus shows are from the 616 universe or timeline. And she says, so I'm wondering, who do you think might be from a different universe or timeline? And how would it completely change what we know about them? And I thought that the idea was just a really cool idea. And the fact that, maybe some of the things that we've already seen weren't in 616, but we just didn't know about them because they didn't tell us. But just because they didn't, we just assumed that it was in 616. So for anybody that's not seen The Sixth Sense, can't believe I'm doing a spoiler warning for The Sixth Sense, but he's dead all along. Yeah. Alex, oh my God, you spoiled it for me.
I'm shocked.
I'm shocked. But the thing is, it's like, so while you're watching the movie, you don't even expect that to happen. And then at the end, they tell you he's dead, and you go back and you go, oh yeah, look, they're not listening to him, and it all makes sense now. And I wonder whether they can pull something like that, like within the MCU, and they can go, look, Moon Knight was never even in the 616. You just assumed it was. We didn't say it wasn't. We didn't say it was. You just assumed that it wasn't. So, and I wonder whether we can, and like you said with Billy and Tommy in 838, I mean, we know that they were in 838, but I wonder whether there's other people that we didn't know, and they'll do that.
See, I like the idea, and I could see that with Moon Knight, because Moon Knight really has no connections other than seeing a GRC truck in there. Werewolf by Night is another one that could be a candidate for that. My only thought, though, with Werewolf by Night is at the end, when we go from black and white to color, that could almost be like them coming from the past and into the future. So Werewolf by Night, I'm kind of torn on. The rest, though, we have so many ties and characters going back and forth between shows and movies that, unless they're trying to say some movies aren't in the main timeline, I don't see it happening for things like WandaVision or Miss Marvel or Falcon and Winter Soldier. Loki, we know how Loki is. Loki's kind of the outlier there, but the other shows, it's kind of how they're going to pull that off like that. So that's a good idea.
Fun idea, yeah. But I know what you're saying. There's been too many hints and too many things that are too close.
Oh, to be able to from the chat. I'll come back to this other one. Eternals could be one because again, other than Kingo references, there's been nothing about Airshine, rolling up to Earth and being like, "What's up?" There's no one talking about that. You see a celestial over Earth like that, looking like Galactus rolling up, people are going to talk, but there's been no talk about that. There's been barely any talk about Tiamat, and the only thing we know about Eternals at other projects is Kingo, and that's it. So.
Yeah. Although there was that conversation they had around that dinner table about Tony Stark and Steve Rogers being gone.
Oh yeah.
But
And also too, there was the Tiamat in the newspaper and She-Hulk. I think that was the only reference I think ever to Tiamat was the She-Hulk newspaper.
But it's an interesting idea. I like those things that go back. Long story short, I remember watching a magician or an illusionist. It probably wasn't even a magician or illusionist. There's probably another name for these type of people that do this type of stuff. But basically, he'd kind of laid seeds over the course of like a year on a show and he went back to the previous year's show, and it was kind of like it set the illusion. Do you know what I mean? And I was, and everyone was like, "Wow, like he's gone back to that. That's incredible."
And see that very idea, and I'm not trying to get on Kang, but that's what I feel like we're gonna have, like a multiverse set up by Kang here, where you're gonna be like, all right, Kang, we're gonna stop you. We're the Avengers, and he's gonna be like, your very existence depends on me going back in time and putting things so far in the past that they've influenced the entire timeline, and
to
now
get to you.
You stop me, you don't exist anymore. So what are you going to do now? And you're like, oh man, like, because it's almost like the idea there is variants are kind of like different choices, different outcomes. Like that's kind of how you get variants. So like if you go far enough back before there's really any branches and you change things like 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, you could definitely do some damage there,
Yeah. And especially if you've seen it all play out in the past. In the future, if you've seen the past already play out, then if you change that, it will go a different way. So
Well, there is a rumor that there is a King variant doing things in the past to set up the King the Conqueror's future that we'll talk about when we get to the news. A couple things in the chat. Overall, I thought it was good. If I watched it as a kid, I really have liked it a lot, I think. And this is about the whole Avengers Next movie.
We've moved on.
Another one. I'm hoping we get Doom for Secret Wars. He and Kang team up, and then Doom kills Kang, ending his dynasty and ushering in his own. Hopefully, we get the Doom Scarlet Witch Crusade type thing, and hopefully, Secret Wars and World Hulk leads to Wastelanders. That's not asking for too much, is it? LOL. Well, one thing too is remember there's kind of that chatter that Doom could be a Kang variant, also as well as always that back and forth. So what if they play on that in the movies? Also too about the whole Scarlet Witch Doom thing. Can we please see Doom rolling up on the bear, saving Scarlet Witch from the rubble, and her body dripped across the bear, him just rolling up. So that'd be a cool thing to see on live screen.
I think that's a nice little segue. To be fair, I think we done. Do you know what we've done really well to talk about that movie for so long, and I think that just, I think that comments on how not simple the movie is. It's not complicated. I appreciate that, but there is more to the movie than just being a kids' movie, and also I think we've been quite analytical of it really, and as we've said a million times before, we don't review stuff. Like I know we might call things review in the title of the show, but we don't really review it. We're not really being, we discuss it and we have a conversation about it. And I think we've done that with this movie, and it's been quite fun. We might have to do it with another couple of animated movies in the future. But moving on nicely, and we've got some news to talk about. Jaren, I dare say you've got some elements for us. So let's see if we can spin some of those in.
Yeah, Quantumania news. So there's a lot, especially with Quantumania, coming up really soon. What, 2 weeks, a week, whatever, week and a half. So Jeff Loveness on MODOK inspiration. MODOK is maybe my single favorite thing that I got in the movie. Obviously, we are very faithful to the comics with the design and look, but then there's a little bit of extra we put into him. Maybe I'll get fired off the King Dynasty when people see it, but some of my favorite moments come from MODOK and the dynamics there. I'll just say he was inspired by Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda and Frank Grimes in an old Simpsons episode. They really put upon selfish, entitled, but then they also are deeply sad, insecure man who knows that he got a shit deal in life and is trying to make the best of it. His ego will crumble the second he's challenged, but then there's also Kevin Kline, a fish called Wanda. He's pretty good at killing people. So that kind of, leads me to they're building on Darren Cross's issues from the original Ant-Man about how his ego was, how he was insecure, how he was hurt and sad that Hank Pym didn't accept him. It seems like they're carrying that theme of him in the quantum realm with MODOK as well.
I love that. That sounds great. That really does sound great. Like, absolutely, that's exactly what I was thinking. That kind of almost like spoilt brat. Like, I designed this. I should, that entitlement. And yeah, I think that fits with MODOK. I hope that the visuals play out as well as that sounds.
Because I keep thinking that Photoshop from the group.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's it. But that I quite like how that sounds, and that sounds like a fun character, but somebody that sounds exactly like MODOK, to be fair.
And if you think with like the sort of like telekinetic powers and stuff that have been like described and stuff, it's kind of very similar to how Kang kind of has those abilities too, with like his suit and his costume. Like he can kind of shoot out energy and like move things and do kinds of like stuff. But it's I almost feel like you're gonna have MODOK like kind of wind up in the QR, and he's gonna be like, all right, like I'm kind of screwed up here, and Kang's gonna be the one that kind of like puts him back together and builds that relationship, and that's gonna be why he probably flocks to Kang's side so much, is because he gave him a second chance almost,
And I'm glad that's good words. That a good phrase that flocked to Kang's side. Like, he's kind of always done that, hasn't he? In like comics, he's always kind of been like a sidekick kind of baddie in a way, hasn't he? Whether it's been a Red Skull, whether it's been somebody else, like he's always been like that kind of, because
the villains don't really like want to take him seriously almost. But
that's why, because of what Jarian just described about his personality. Like, he's not really like that sort of egotistical villain, not in that way. He's like a spoiled brat type of villain, and then the villains are like, come on, like man up.
I just hope that he's not a one and done. Hopefully we get him to the multiverse saga. Hopefully he finds a way to get out of the quantum realm and we see him in the future world, possibly. So one thing to keep an eye on. Jeff Loveness also talked on King being a greater threat than Thanos. To me, it's all about the humanity. Obviously, Thanos is a great, iconic villain, but he's also a big purple CGI guy. He's an alien from outer space. The thing I really wanted to lean into is that King is a human being. King's also a very lonely character. We're going to be seeing a lot of him in a lot of different ways going forward. But I really wanted to introduce the humanity and even the vulnerability of his character before he gets to such an apocalyptic Avengers scale heights. Kang is a top-tier A-list Avengers villain. What do you feel when you're not enough against that? How do you step up to face the challenge of this generation, who is Thanos on an exponential level? He's almost this infinite Thanos. I think we're setting this things up pretty for a dynamic story. As I am building to the Avengers, I want it to feel like a generational struggle. Phase 4 felt like the birth of new characters. You're giving everyone a little bit of breath. You're broadening out the universe. You have fun Disney Plus shows that are elevating characters. And now I think it's time to put the pedal to the gas again and really take all these new characters that we like and throw them into the fire.
Yeah.
So,
that sounds cool. I like that. That's exactly what he said. He's almost like gone, look, we've done that. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
The table's set. It's time for dinner. Right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We've had enough messing about. We're on it now. Yeah.
He also talked about his deep dive into Kang. He says, too deep. I got way into Rama Tut and Scarlet Centurion stuff, trying to read my way through that, and the Celestial Madonna with Mantis. That's the joy of the character. He is just the infinite snake eating infinite tails, a man literally at war against himself. So I wonder if we're going to see Rama Tut and Scarlet Centurion as variants at some point.
Yeah. That whole Scarlet Centurion thing is really interesting because he's always used him as like a lackey almost, doesn't he? Like, to go and do his dirty work for him, and I like that. I like that.
Yeah, he's almost like Scarlet Centurion is basically the children of Thanos to King.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's kind of like, I feel like he's got that attitude with him, like one day you'll be where I am, kind of like type attitude.
Yeah, he's like the subordinate. He's like the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
The apprentice.
Yep. He also had some frustrations with in-game time travel. I haven't seen a time traveling character done with such intricacy and exploration. I'm a little bummed because in game did so much time travel. You almost need to broaden him out a little bit too. Maybe broaden out into the multiverse a little more. The dimensionality of the character, the limitless freedom he was, while also being completely uprooted from his time and himself. It is just going to fall apart again because another version of him can destroy it as well. What's the purpose of building Rome if you're going to burn it down the next day because they want to have their own Rome? So it sounds like we're going to get maybe the one true king type thing fitting in here where
Yeah.
the kings are battling for, who the best and final king will be. It almost sounds like we might get a little bit of that too in this multiverse saga.
I think He Who Remains in Loki kind of alluded to that a little bit, didn't he? He was like, if it weren't me, it was going to be one of my others, and
Yep.
you won't like them.
And he only won because he weaponized Goliath. He says
Yep.
that,
Yeah.
like had it would have not been for Goliath, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, and it's so curious to me, like, where does that come from? Is he just like something at the end of time that's, he just pulled in? Like, where does Goliath come from?
And are we going to see him do that at some point in this saga too? Are we
Definitely.
going to kind of do that loop back to that time?
Because maybe Kang the Conqueror escaped to the quantum realm to escape being eaten by Goliath or something.
Yep.
Like.
So
I just had this. I laughed because I just had this sort of terrible vision, and I hope I don't find this as funny when it actually happens. But of Eddie Murphy in like the Clumps, just playing every character. I just see Jonathan Majors just playing like 6 different people, and they're all having an argument together. Oh, sorry.
He also talked about what he took from the comics. He says, I certainly took a lot from the comics, but the joy of these movies is you also get to put some of yourself into it. You get to put a completely new spin because if you just do it 100% comic adaptation, people know all the tricks and what to expect. You have to use that as a foundation and then throw a curveball. I try to lean into him being a more interesting character than people expect, hopefully. So I wonder if, like I said, we're going to see some kind of twist on what variants we see, and if people will end up being variants that we didn't think of possibly. So
Yeah,
Really interesting.
I'm not sure I like that idea of Doom being a variant of him.
I don't. I'm not a big fan of that.
I could go either way. I just know that there's been chatter about it because there's been some kind of controversy in the comics whether Doom is a variant or not in some of their interactions.
I wouldn't mind there being some sort of relationship between a Kang variant and a Doom, like in the past maybe, but not necessarily.
Or a relative,
Yeah.
or
I
lineage
didn't
or
say that.
something.
Yeah, I'd take that, but not just a variant of him. I don't. That'd kind of devalue Doom, I think, a little bit.
From the comments here, they could use Ramatut for the Moon Knight connection, the kid in the jacket, and that's what we all were hoping for. And maybe we'll see a past Ramatut with Khonshu and other Egyptian gods, and as some kind of tease or some kind of like flashback or something.
We
And
was
they
talking
missed-
about that, wasn't we, in the show?
They
Well,
missed
when
the
was
boat on that with Alexander the Great. They could have used Ramatut then, and did
that
not.
was so easy, wasn't it?
Yep.
That was so easy, and again we hark back to what we said about those little one-liners in the next Avengers movie. About Tony saying they weren't ready or whatever it was, and that one line, like it didn't have to be Alexander the Great, did it? Like that's made no difference to us as fans whatsoever, and like historians aren't going to be watching that show and going, "No, it won't be." Ramatut doesn't actually exist, but Alexander the Great did. Like, nobody's going to care. But if they said Ramatut, we would all go crazy, and that would be perfect.
Well, and if the artifacts thing like held to be true, and it was like all these artifacts are related to Kang, then they could have related the Scarab to Kang in that point too.
Yeah.
Yep. Missed opportunity, maybe.
Last thing on Quantumania news, Paul Rudd is teasing cameos. He said, for people that are aware, I think we have some good ones in there, some really good ones. I'm obviously not going to tell you what they are, but I think the ones that people find out about or learn about it would be a 10. So,
come on, who do you reckon?
I have no idea.
I mean, my hope would be that pipe dream of a theory that we've had about the Fantastic Four being in the quantum realm, but I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like we're probably going to get some little like cameos before they get sucked into the quantum realm, where it's going to be like, just kind of shouts to other Avengers, or like maybe Scott Lang's like going out to lunch with like, you know, a random like Avenger or something like that. Like, who knows? I mean, it could be Anthony Mackie or something, you know, I mean, it could be anybody. Like, it's going to be probably just like a little surprise. Like, and there's that one line in the trailer where they're like, oh, thank you, Spider-Man. And, you know, like he's like, not Spider-Man, but yeah, okay, you know, so.
Maybe we get a tease of Cassie and Kate's relationship. Maybe she talks about her friend, you know, but doesn't name Kate. And maybe says my friend, the Archer, or something like that. You know, kind of a throwaway line. Maybe that's not
Isn't she
throwaway.
supposed to be in it? Isn't she supposed to be in it though, Kate?
Kate, I don't know.
I thought she was supposed to be in it. Maybe
I don't
I'm
know.
wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's always stuff out there, but I don't think anything's been official yet.
Right. Okay. I thought I heard somebody that she was, but you're probably right because you keep up to date a bit more than I do. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kate at all, like actually properly see Kate in this. Maybe at the end. I'm
Post-credit
thinking,
scene.
yeah, maybe, or maybe just at the end of the movie rather than a post credits. Loki, Ravonna.
I feel
Mobius?
like we're gonna get a Loki end credit scene at the end of Quantum.
How mad would that be? You know, we keep saying about this show, movie skipping thing. How mad would that be now to actually get an end credit scene in a movie that's referencing a show? How cool would that be? And with Kate in it as well. Well, maybe 2 end credit scenes. Maybe Kate coming from a show into the movie to do an end credit scene to take it back into another movie, and then Loki being an end credit scene to take it back into a show.
I mean, Miss Marvel time traveling back to the partition could have some impact, even, so we could see a Miss Marvel reference, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, the other thing too is, and I don't know why, but I feel like they have to relate Miss Marvel to Kang just because of the Infinity Warp stuff, where they combined Kang and Kamala, and they made Kamala Kang. You know, like I don't know why, but my brain always goes back to that. But I just feel like with the bangle that's quantum and everything in the MCU, they have to relate her to Kang in some way.
There's got to be that link, hasn't there?
Yeah, I'm still hoping that the Marvels is the first major on-screen incursion we see outside of Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we think? Because I know I haven't seen it, but apparently this latest trailer, there's some new stuff, and somebody I read somewhere that said, "Oh, Kang, I finally heard the line that I wanted to hear Kang say," and I'm going to guess that that's that line of "Are you an Avenger? Have I killed you before?" Or whatever
he says it.
Yeah. I'm not going to watch it because I just want to see it in the movie theater. I wonder whether we'll see some sort of hopefully non-cheesy montage of Kang killing other Avengers in other times and things like that. And will we see actors that have played? You know, will we see maybe Chris Evans? Will we see Robert Downey Jr., ScarJo? You know, Chris Hemsworth playing a different version of their character. So not 616 Cap, not 616 Natasha and Tony 4, whatever. But will we see them playing a different version in some sort of like, you know, like the little thing that He Who Remains had on his desk that done that the little metallic people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you reckon we could see something along those lines, like of him killing other people?
We could, but I don't think we necessarily need the actors to do that. Like, they could have Cap with the mask on, Tony with his, you know, his mask on. Just have them all with their headpieces on, maybe like blurred out type things. Because I wonder what the budget was and the time to do that. Because you got to think of the actors' deals and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we might see like 1 or 2 of them, or they film stuff during their other films to do that. You know, but yeah, I'd love to see something like that though.
I think it would be a cool idea. I mean, we saw He Who Remains. He had all those trophies in his room, in his office, I guess I'll call it. You know, I think he had an Iron Man mask. He had a few other things that were like sitting throughout the room. So I think it would be cool. I feel like visually speaking, it might be a little hard to kind of pull that off because you got to pull so many people in. Yeah. So I could almost see them doing like almost like a montage, but where it's like shots of like dead Avengers or dead Sovereign Supreme or, you know, the dead Winter Guard or whoever it is, like, and it's just Kang just like, you know, going
Staying
through like timelines through different, you know, points in time. He might kill the Avengers 1 million, you know, he might go back and just wipe out like different points in time.
Have we said this? I don't feel like this is my idea, but if we said this about a Wolverine Origins-esque opening credits,
something like that we could do.
wait, did I didn't just come up with that idea, did I?
No, we talked about it. We talked
We
about
have
it,
talked about that,
Yeah,
yeah.
recently. Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking that's surely not my idea. I'm not that creative. But yeah, something like that, and seeing Kang do that to, like you just said, Alex, the Winter Guard and the Defenders or whatever, different groups of heroes or different individuals, taking them out over time in an opening credits scene.
They could do the mix of Wolverine and animation as well to do it also.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I would love to see a 10-minute montage of Kang just killing like people from across the multiverse. I think it would be awesome, but it's
Yep.
just one of those things that I feel like for budget, for time, for how much would just go into like one thing. It would be like, all right, this is on screen, now it's off. This is on screen, now it's off. This is
But-
on screen, now it's off,
do you think they could say that for the King Dynasty though, instead of Quantumania? That might be something
Yeah.
for the King. Excuse me, for something for the King Dynasty to show.
Yeah.
Once
yeah,
he escapes the QR kind
Yep.
of type of thing. Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's not. Yeah, maybe because maybe he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe he will once he gets out of the quantum realm. Yeah.
Mhm.
From the chat, I wonder what Kang thinks of Wanda. Surely he knows about her and her variants. Is Kang another Nexus being in the MCU? So that's a good question. I know there was a rumor that what happened in Multiverse of Madness had to happen for something with Kang. There was a rumor floating around. I can't remember it, but Alex, you and I talked about this before. You remember we talked about that that at that moment in time, maybe that had to happen for this to happen with Kang. That there was some kind of tie there that he knew about of her and so forth. But yeah.
That comment. Go on, put that latest comment up. Can you see it?
Oh, yep. They should show him killing Avengers in other universes, at least a little. Don't do us like they did Gore. Exactly. 100%
I was
agree
gonna.
on that one.
When Alex, you were saying about going, killing Avengers and all that, I was gonna say that's what they could have done with Gore, and we would have gone. There we go. He's done
Yep.
some god butchering, and we were all happy. But I
Instead of
didn't say
killing
so.
one single god
Yeah,
on screen, but he's a
yeah.
god butcher, but he kills one god. Like,
Knowing Taika though, he probably would have done a Gore killing montage, kind of like Lieutenant Dan dying in Forrest Gump, his relatives through all the wars. That would have been your montage of Gore killing gods in Love and Thunder, the way that Taika does things.
I was going to say just before you move on there, from about the Wanda thing. Kang's so arrogant, isn't he? That I don't think he really cares. He's sort of like, well, I can beat anybody anytime. He always gets that sort of. He always gives me that arrogant. He doesn't care about anybody else feel.
It's like that Thanos. I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't even know who you are.
well, and it seems like the TVA kind of like has mastered how to deal with magic. So I feel like Wanda's kind of like the anomaly when it comes to magic. So it's like, does chaos magic not work or does it work in the TVA? Does it not work in the TVA? Is it the one exception to that rule of magic, there? Because she's kind of like a one-off kind of person. Like she's the only Scarlet Witch right now. So
and you think that she was the main universe Wanda was the most powerful Wanda, it seems too, unless there's more out there we haven't seen yet. And right now the way it stands in the MCU, she's a chess piece that's off the board. She's that queen piece that can move wherever and whenever that's off the board right now. So there's that too. Thunderbolts. There's been some chatter. Sentry is the physical antagonist for the team, but the mastermind behind it all is Val. So to me, this sounds like Val's trying to work once again with the super soldier serum, and something goes wrong, and this is how we get, basically Sentry as a flying super soldier.
I
what
wonder
is
whether
she?
she's playing both sides.
I was
think
going to
she
say
is.
that. I was going to say that. I think she's going to send the Thunderbolts in as a test to see how Sentry does against a bunch of other super soldiers and assassins and people with abilities to be like, all right, let's put one massive super soldier against the others and see if he just wrecks shop,
Yeah, that kind of. I quite like the idea that she releases Sentry to say almost like as a reason to then have to re-spark up the super soldier program or something like that. Oh look, even these Thunderbolts aren't good enough to stop him. We need to do this again. I don't know.
It's almost like they're making her Amanda Waller type in the MCU.
Yeah, sure. That's the
Yeah.
vibes that I got from her. I mean, I don't know Amanda Waller well, apart from what I've seen in the two Suicide Squad movies, but that's exactly what the vibes that I got from that.
And I feel like with super soldiers, it's kind of like based on their mental stability is kind of how the serum kind of interacts with them, sort of in a way. I mean, like Steve was a great guy, like all around. So I mean, he took the serum, like he was pretty. I mean, it just exemplified his good abilities and traits. With like Bucky, like I mean, he was brainwashed. He was kind of like he had some issues. John Walker hears a high pitch whenever he gets like in these weird situations where he just kind of like loses it. It's like he's not all there in that moment, And then you might have Sentry. He's just like, hey, I've lost my mind. This is the void kind of type thing. And it's just an exponential kind of thing that's created by the super soldier serum, maybe.
Sure. Dr. Erskine said that to Steve, didn't he, when he was before he took the serum, actually. He said that. He said something like, that it's going to make you. Yeah, there you go. Somebody already said that
in the chat. Yeah, Amplified was already there.
Yeah, and that's I guess like what I was saying earlier about steroids when I said about Bruce. Maybe it's done the opposite to Bruce, but generally speaking, it just says it makes you more of what you already are.
They have a new cast member that has joined in a secret role. Ayo Edebiri, sorry if I butchered that name. She joins the cast in a secret role. So is this going to be another character on the team? Moondragon, Tigra, Songbird, Shanna the She-Devil. If there's still talk about them going to Savage Land, I could see Shanna the She-Devil since she has that connection there to both Thunderbolts and the Savage Land. So yeah, interesting to see who she ends up being and what role she plays in the team because right now it's a secret role.
Interesting.
In an Instagram post, Marvel Studios director of visual development Andy Park explained that Thunderbolts is serving as a sequel to Black Widow. He basically said in his Instagram post, it's like a Black Widow sequel, and these movies are connected or something. It's going to get interesting. So,
I'm just trying to work that out in my head.
Yeah,
like
but you got Val introduced in that movie. You got Yelena, who's the the introduction there. Maybe there's more stuff to what was going on with Dracoff and other things behind the scenes. Maybe Val was kind of the mastermind behind all that kind of stuff that we don't know about. But
this is
definitely
this is a Yelena movie, isn't it? It is a Yelena movie, which I'm not overly bothered about seeing more Yelena, but I'm just sad that they're attaching the Thunderbolts to it.
Exactly. You do a Black Widow 2, circle around a Yelena, Lou Thunderbolts out of it, and make a Thunderbolts proper film.
Yeah, totally. I'd be quite happy to do that. I'd be quite happy to watch a movie about Yelena, but she doesn't need to be in a Thunderbolts movie.
I mean, I feel like Yelena's going to end up running point for the team, though. I mean, like, she's going to... I mean, I thought it was going to be Bucky, honestly, like, when we were just talking about this in the beginning, but now, kind of after saying that, it kind of sounds like Yelena's going to be kind of like hey, let's point us in a direction here and get us moving here. Like, she's going to be kind of their leader in a sense, but I think there's going to, of course, be conflicts and stuff with other members on the team.
Maybe she becomes Sentry. There's a twist right there.
Boom. There it is.
Wait, what?
Yeah, maybe there's a twist in this movie where she becomes Sentry. Maybe she gets the serum.
Jorian, get out.
Hey,
Get out.
Hey. All I'm saying is Black Widow 1 threw us a curveball with Taskmaster.
Yeah. True,
Black Widow 2 probably going to throw us a curveball with Sentry. Watch.
If they did that, I think everybody would just be sitting in a movie theater going, well, we would anyway, just going, huh?
But I mean, we're already kind of sitting here going, huh, with the roster, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
there's going to be a curveball thrown here. So
yeah, you're probably not wrong.
Yeah. From the chat comments, weird, right? Or is it just me about, the whole thing here about the movie? And then someone also goes, that's it, Andy. Why call it Thunderbolts? Just call it Black Widow 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on. Wakanda Forever has some, hold on a second. Let me go back to the chat. I'm hoping Val, seen as Madam Hydra, then Ross gets control of the team and half the roster changes partway through the film. That would be a good twist right there, too, as well. Where she is Madam Hydra and she's, like I said, working both sides and then goes full on villain in this movie.
That's more point. Like it. That's a more realistic twist. I like it. Jorian's gone crazy.
And then the super soldier serum is being developed by Hydra there if they created the Sentry. And then that's like a boom, like.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right, Wakanda Forever. They have gotten some Academy Award nominations. So, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Visual Effects, Best Original Song, Best Costume Design, and Angela Bassett for Best Supporting Actress. So,
Do you know, I was looking at, you know, I know you guys know it, and I won't going to spout it out now, but I come up with an idea. It's nothing amazing, but I come up with an idea the other day. So I started looking into the categories for Academy Awards. There's so many categories for Academy Awards. I did not realize there's literally an Academy. There's an award for everything. And you said there about what was the first one? Hair and makeup and hair.
Best makeup and hairstyling.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, obviously, super talented people that do makeup and hair in movies and stuff like that. But I didn't realize there was an Academy Award for it until last week.
Yeah, there's a Academy Award for a lot of things. You only see the major ones during the actual broadcast, but then you see like those little text things that come on the screen saying earlier tonight, blah blah blah, got award. You know, so they do all that stuff. Yep, but they kind of fast track it during the actual production for the major awards.
Yeah. So sorry, can you repeat what they were, Joan? So makeup and hair,
visual effects, original song, costume design, and then supporting actress for Angela Bassett.
Is the original song Rihanna's song?
Lift Me Up, whatever. So
a costume design, I completely see that. I think the costumes in both of those movies have been amazing, and yeah, Angela Bassett was captivating. So yeah,
visual effects too. Just look how they build out everything in those films. You know, all that, you know, to go along with the costumes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the underwater stuff was very, very good in that, wasn't it?
Yep.
But is Avatar up for a visual effects as well? Do you know?
I don't know. I wouldn't doubt it though.
It's got to be. I mean, to be fair, I know the story was very simple, but actually it was quite self-indulgent about how obvious it was that they was like, look at our good effects. You know, they sort of showed you these effects over and over again just to show them off, and you're like, yeah, okay, we get it. They're really, really good.
Moving on to Loki, there is a season 2 rumor. One variant of Kang in Loki season 2 is an inventor in the past wanting to buy stuff from people to affect the future, and Loki is trying to stop him. Now, my initial thought went to be, is this Sonny Burch's buyer?
And he's got to be Victor
like
Timely,
Mr.
surely.
Mr. Griffin.
No, I'll say Victor Timely or somebody related to Victor Timely over the years, but this screams to me Sonny Burch's buyer. We never found out who it was. Now we know that Kang's getting introduced through Ant-Man movie. He was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Does this kind of tie into that whole thing with Sonny Burch and the special buyer? He won at Quantum Tech. So
yeah, maybe he's trying to get. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he did want a Quantum Tech, so maybe he's trying to get Kang out of the quantum realm.
Yep.
Maybe Kang's trying to get him to get himself out of the quantum realm. Yeah.
Maybe it's like one of those things where you see in the movies, like there'll be like some entity like trapped in a realm, and it's like the person's trying to like free them. That way they're like their servant, you know, like, I'm gonna free you kind of type thing, and it's like that maybe.
You know what I just did there? I just sort of scratched my head. I want to get that timey-wimey kind of like headache where you're like, wait, what's going on? And just really had to try and think about how this is all going to work and all this is going to work together.
Yeah.
There's always been some rumors about Quake returning and being in the MCU. Chloe Bennett, did she confirm this in a tweet that she is returning? So Charles Murphy, Multiverse, I can't talk, was going back and forth with people on Twitter about her, and she quote-tweeted one of his tweets saying, "Hey man, you seem like a mean loser. Also, I have a strong feeling your tweets aren't going to age well."
Yeah.
Because everyone's been going at him about her return. He's like, you know, kind of going back and forth with them, and she kind of almost confirmed it in a tweet, it seems. So maybe, do we see her in Secret Invasion? Do we see her in another project? You know, she's more of a S.H.I.E.L.D. type person, so Secret Invasion kind of does make sense. If she's going to return, I'm trying to think what other project is she returning right now.
Miss Marvel season 2.
That could work too. Yes, good point. Or the Marvels even.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what though? You say that though, Alex. I think that's a good shout because I think she would work quite well in that environment, the feel of that project.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like I could imagine her maybe in Secret Invasion if they kind of tweaked her approach, but she's got that softer approach that I think would work in like alongside Iman Vellani in Miss Marvel season 2, yeah, for sure. But my son's watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. I think he's on like season 4 or 5. I think he's actually gone beyond where I stopped watching it. No, I didn't stop watching. You laugh, but that sounds like I stopped watching it because I didn't want to watch it anymore. As in,
It's
I
okay.
got bored of it. It's right.
You
You
can
can
admit it.
admit
It's okay.
I didn't. I really didn't. I think it just fell out of it, to be totally honest, because it
Yeah.
probably just didn't interest me, and I can't. You lose the rhythm, don't you? And then you're gone. But he's watching it again, and actually, I catch it every now and again when I'm watching it, and I do quite like her actually. I don't mind her at all. I wouldn't mind her coming back to the MCU, but I want Coulson as well.
And
Yeah.
honestly, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have done outside of cartoons, they've done Humans properly. I thought they handled Inhumans very well in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where that TV show was a straight dumpster fire.
Definitely. I mean, they made Black Bolt like a giant toddler that doesn't
Mhm.
understand like basic communication, and he's like a king of a nation, on the moon. So it's like he comes to Earth and he doesn't really seem to understand anything. They messed up Medusa in that show. I mean, Quake is an Inhuman. Miss Marvel was originally Inhuman. I know she's a mutant now, but
Mhm.
I
That's
mean,
a good
it was,
shout, actually. Yeah.
like
I didn't
And
even
what
think
they-
about it like that. Is that what you were saying? Like, I didn't even think about it like that. Of course, yeah, she's
Yeah.
a human.
So I mean, it'd be a nice little push to push those two together, I think.
And mentioning,
Yeah.
now you bring back up that they made Miss Marvel mutant instead of a human in the MCU. Well, they made Quake a mutant as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good shout. Bobby Morse, so Mockingbird in that
Mhm.
show. I really liked her.
Yeah.
Adrian Pelinki.
Yep.
I can't remember what her actual name is, but I really liked her. I thought she was really cool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Really good stuff. Really good scenes. I thought she was a good actress. I thought she'd done well in it. But yeah, I'd be well up for seeing Chloe Bennett as Quake again. Yeah.
Yep. I think anyone returning from that series outside of Coulson, I think she's probably up there as one of my top people returning.
Which I would love to see them bring back Coulson, but they did his character so weird in the later seasons of that, where they like killed him off and then brought him back as a life model
Yep.
decoy, which is kind of a weird little touch because in the first Avengers movie, Tony is like, you've reached the life model decoy of Tony Stark, so it's kind of like that connection. But yeah.
And they could have made him a life model decoy the entire time instead of doing the whole Project Tahiti thing.
That would have been so much better. Yeah.
Yes.
That would have been so much better.
Eternals, this is interesting, was the most watched MCU movie on Disney Plus in 2022. It was also the only MCU movie in the top 15 at number 13 of the top 15 movies on Disney Plus.
I'm going to put that down to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the timing of it more than anything else. Because Black Widow was released in the summer, wasn't it, of 21?
Yep.
Yes.
And then Eternals was in the fall.
Yeah. But so Black Widow came out and everyone was like, yeah, great, we can go and do stuff again. They was like telling everybody to go out and do stuff, weren't they? And then Eternals was in the fall when everyone was like, oh, wait a minute, we're going to get locked down again, and we're going to release this, and then cinemas shut again. They did over here at least. So I think that probably is a lot to do with that.
But wasn't Black Widow the one where you could get it the same day streaming for an extra cost, though?
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah,
you would figure Black Widow would have gotten that title.
True, but it had the opportunity to go back to the cinema, where it was like the first big movie to go back to the cinema since COVID had been a thing. So I took advantage of that. I was like, I can't wait to go to the cinema just to see anything. I don't care what it was, and so that I think, but where Eternals probably didn't have that luxury.
From the chat, those Disney Plus statistics don't make any sense. I feel like other movies were probably more popular. I don't know, because maybe a lot of people decide to also skip going to the theater for Eternals once it went to streaming too, like Andy was saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they probably watched it, or they watched it again on rewatch on streaming, because it could make sense. But it was the only MCU movie in the top 15 at number 13. So closing out with some Fantastic Four stuff.
Yay.
And then a casting that's not tied to any project too will be the last thing. So Fantastic Four, there's a rumor that Ryan Gosling is a front runner for Fantastic Four. Rumor doesn't say which character, but there's been chatter of Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. I don't see him as Reed. I mean, I could see him as Ben Grimm in human form. I don't see him voicing Ben Grimm as the Thing, though. I almost think that if they did this with him, that he could be Grimm as human form before he gets transformed into the Thing, and then maybe bring someone else in to voice the Thing. I don't know. It just seems, I don't see him as Doom. I don't see him as Johnny Storm unless they're going with an older thing here. He could probably do Johnny Storm,
That's what
an
I was just
older
thinking.
an older one.
He's
But I
probably
don't
the only
know.
one that I'd accept him. I don't think
Yeah.
I'd want him as Reed. I don't think he doesn't hold that stature. I don't think.
I mean,
to be
I-
Reed.
I liked him in The Nice Guys and in Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner
Yeah.
movie. So I could see him pull off a Grimm, combining those kind of things. His character in Nice Guys and Blade Runner kind of combine those together, possibly pulling off Grimm. I just don't hear him voicing Grimm once Grimm is the thing.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I just when they introduced Reed in Multiverse of Madness, the smartest man alive. Like, I just don't see them going, here's the smartest man alive, and then it's Ryan Gosling.
yeah,
No offense to Ryan Gosling, I don't. That's not at all. I like you said, Joe, and I've liked him in a few things that he's done. I just don't see that being him.
yeah.
Mhm.
And speaking of Multiverse of Madness, it does seem like that Krasinski's not returning in this role. From more chatter out there.
Yeah, we
We're
had
gonna
that
get
on-
a new. Yeah,
We had that in the group the other day. Somebody said, how would you feel if Krasinski was, Reed? And I think most people, the general consensus was probably disappointed.
yeah. There's an article I shared too. They had like 10 people that could be Reed Richards. There's some good options in there. I still don't like Cavill. I don't like Cavill though being Reed. He was one of them.
Who?
Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill. I don't see him
Yeah,
as Reed
no.
Richards. He could pull off Doom to me. But I don't see him as Reed. So
Yeah, after seeing in Rogue, is it Rogue Nation, the last Mission Impossible, the one where he was in it as a baddie? He was great in that as a
Yeah.
baddie. He had that kind of that arrogant baddie presence that I think would be really good as Doom.
there's more rumors that Galactus is the villain of the movie, but now the rumor is saying that Galactus has already been cast, but the actor is not known yet. So
Ryan Gosling.
Hopefully not.
Can you imagine?
yeah.
Hmm.
And the last but not least of the news, Jonah Zhao has reportedly joined Marvel as the lead female role in an undisclosed Disney Plus project.
Who is that, Joey? I don't know who that is.
She is an Asian actress. I'm trying to think which. She actually was cast before in Marvel, but she was cut out of the project.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look it up real quick. I can't remember which
So-
project it was.
So I'm just trying to think. So you say she's an Asian actress. Could she be somewhere along the lines of Colin Wing, or could she be something to do with Shang-Chi?
Maybe.
Or are they going to mix up, the origins of somebody? I'm not sure.
She was removed from Spider-Man: Homecoming,
Oh, okay.
so she was in it, but she got pulled. She was removed from it. So
Do we
Disney-
know as what sort of role she had? In it?
Um,
Obviously not a character. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to see here.
It's weird. That was a long time ago too.
Oh yeah, Homecoming. I just
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, wow,
Homecoming.
yeah.
She filmed for the project, but was removed, and she was never seen in the final project or its two sequels. She had a mystery role in Homecoming.
Wow.
She couldn't say anything what it was. So
I was gonna say, I wonder whether it's the same role.
Silk.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What other Spider-Man adjacent person could she be?
But then sorry, what was the rumors? She's been cast in a Disney Plus show.
Yeah, so it can't be. Yeah, so it can't be a
just the-
Spider-Man character.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah.
Do you think she could be the MCU's Elektra?
Yeah, maybe.
Could she also be White Tiger in the MCU?
I kind of got my head around General Ortega being White Tiger, but yeah, she could be, yeah. When people say something enough, like I'm still convinced that Zac Efron's going to be Wolverine, even though I'm the
But
only
it's
person.
you saying that though.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm telling myself, I'm just going to be beating myself up when it doesn't happen. But yeah, no, do you know what I mean? Like, you said about White Tiger. It's like we've discussed it. There's that great fan art that I think you shared, Alex, of General Ortega as White Tiger, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's happening now. Then when you say anybody else, you're like, no, but General Ortega's back. No, nobody said that. Nobody's actually said that. Just us.
Because
Mhm.
White Tiger is Spider-Man adjacent, but also she's not a Spider-Man character.
I was just about to say, I
Yeah.
wonder where the rights live. I
Yeah.
wonder where the rights live for that person.
I mean, she like I said she could be calling Wing in the MCU. They could be doing Iron Fist thing with her as calling Wing.
It'd be a shame if they don't bring back
Jessica Henwick.
though. Yeah,
She
'cause
could
was
she
good.
could be Elektra, you know?
Yeah.
She I don't know. I have to think here.
Oh,
The
Talk- talk-
Homecoming's a weird time to kind of put her in there because it would be
High
when he
school.
was, yeah, it'd be like maybe a high school related thing, but
which is
What
the
you about to
White
say?
Tiger thing, isn't it? Really?
yeah.
No, mine was totally different. I was going to finish on something totally different.
Oh, okay. But yeah,
Um,
but interesting to see what she ends up being and what project it is. I wonder maybe it could. I don't know. Maybe one of the special presentations. Maybe she's one of those. Maybe she's in like something on the cosmic side, or even Ghost Rider tide. Maybe who
Yeah.
knows?
We might be looking in the complete
Yeah.
opposite area here. It might, like you say, be something
Nova
totally-
Project.
Yeah, it might be something totally different.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Now, all I was going to finish on is just talking about Elektra, and it just got me thinking of the Defenders saga on the Netflix. So I'm up to about halfway through Punisher now. I got to say something really bad here. Do you know what? This is the second time I've watched Punisher now, and it's actually not as good as the others. I don't feel for me. Like I'm not as interested in it. Like I don't mind it, and John Bernthald's good, but I'm like, come on.
it's a different style and tone than the rest. The rest
It
kind of have a
is.
similar common theme, kind of tone, but Punisher is kind of an outlier when it comes to the whole Defender saga. You know
Yeah.
the way they do it on Netflix.
Yeah, you're right. I just haven't. Yeah, I've kind of. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Actually, it's kind of like the Defender saga, almost like the Defenders, the limited series, almost finished it, and now it's almost like I've started something completely different. And it's not because there's no ties or no links or anything like that. That's not what I mean. But like you say, it's like tonally it is different. And that's not to say I don't like it. I'm just not as involved in it. You know, I find myself checking my phone a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, oh, what's over there? You know, rather than really focused on the action on screen. But still, I'm getting there. But I've still got like loads of shows left, so I'm still looking forward to it. But
And you're
anyway,
talking about the Punisher specifically, right?
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, so I feel like the Punisher is kind of like, you remember that scene in Daredevil where he like shoots from like another building top and like helps Daredevil like while he's fighting somebody, and he turns and looks and he's just like, yeah, like I'm here, you know, off at a distance, but I'm
Yeah.
still here, kind of type of thing. Like I feel like that's kind of Punisher's thing in the Netflix shows is like he's kind of a part of it, but he's really not at the same time. He's kind of like a one-man army. He does his own thing, you know.
yeah. So even the show is like him in the show.
yeah, basically, you know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so I'm not. I think it's well produced. I think the acting's good. I think the storyline is decent. I'm just not quite as into it and as focused on it as I have been on the others. But you know, that's that. You know, I'm still watching it, and it's cool. And John Bernthal is good. He is good. There you go. Somebody said like, a way different tone. He's not a hero.
Yep.
Not even a reluctant hero. Yeah, yeah. You're not wrong. Actually, he's very much. Actually, funnily enough, looping it back round to next Avengers and the Hulk. He's kind of like, just leave me alone. I just don't want to get involved in this. Like, I just want to be left alone most of the time. But and that's exactly what Hulk's on. Guys, good episode. I'm really surprised we got that much conversation out of next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. That's great. We'll do this again sometime. We'll pick another animated movie or maybe even another non-MCU Marvel movie. Maybe like the original Daredevil or something like that. And we'll have a watch of that. And Alex just shaking his head going,
Not that, please.
any other movie other than that.
We should pick another Disney Plus, or we should pick another cartoon on Disney Plus. Maybe.
I tell you what, anybody that's listening, watching, maybe make a suggestion.
I got an idea real quick.
Go on.
We should probably do those Kang episodes on either Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Avengers Assemble. Talk about that Kang storyline before Quantumania comes out.
That's a great idea. I tell you what. Well, we can do this off air, but why don't we do it on air? Why don't you research what ones they are? Let us know, and we'll watch them, and maybe we'll do that next week because we haven't got long. We'll have next week and then a preview episode, and then we'll be in for our review episode the week after.
Mhm.
All right. I'll
Superb.
also put in our chat.
Okay. Alex Giant, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you. I think we've had RMC, Jamie, other Jamie. I think Ruben was on there as well. I'm not sure whoever else was there, but thank you guys for listening live. Catch you again.
See you next
guys.
week.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced
All right. Well, as I remember,
at Avenger headquarters?